Chapter 1102, Engaging Tigers to Hunt Wolves. Protective custody, that's quite a witty answer. As expected of a newly promoted Red Gloves team captain. When the fool Klein heard the star Leonard's answer, he couldn't help but laugh inwardly. He knew very well who Emlyn was referring to, and he knew quite a bit about Bishop Otravsky, who wished to be called a priest. He didn't really believe Emlyn White's claim that he hasn't done anything wrong, nor does he plan on doing anything wrong. This was because, to a deity's blessed or a zealot, their understanding of something wrong might be different from a normal person's. Of course, Klein never suspected Father Otravsky's claim that life was precious and his piousness and acknowledgement of a joyous harvest. But the problem was that the Church of Earth Mother also preached that lives were like plants, which would ultimately wither and die, returning to the embrace of the Earth Mother. They would then grow again when the next year came. A qualified bishop of the Church of Earth Mother wouldn't treat death in the same manner as the most ordinary of people. Regardless, Father Otravsky has to be controlled. This is both a form of protection for the Earth Mother's believers as well as the citizens around him. It's also a form of protection for this half-giant bishop in case some irredeemable situation occurs. While Klein was thinking to himself, Leonard, who had no lack of understanding of the Harvest Church, also understood the meat of Emlyn's question. He planned on leading his team members to confirm the situation in the next 2 days, taking the Earth Mothers blessed into protective custody with the help of the official organizations that were in charge of the area south of the bridge. And when Emlyn heard the answer, he slowly nodded without saying a word. Seeing that he was silent, Leonard turned to ask a question he wanted to get some feedback on. Are there any major matters lurking beneath Backlund recently? What he really wanted to ask was why his Red Gloves team had been left behind in the capital of capitals as a part of the reserve forces. As soon as he finished speaking, the other members of the Tarot Club, including the son Derek, who wasn't too concerned about matters of the outside world, all cast their gazes at the world Jam and Sparrow. From what they knew, whenever something happened in Backlund, Mr. World would more or less give a warning. What major matters has been lurking beneath Backlund recently? There's plenty. The Black Emperor ritual of George III, my secret alliance with Queen Mystic, the three churches may seem to be tacitly in approval, but all have different attitudes. As Klein's thoughts raced, he suddenly understood what Leonard wanted to ask. After all, they would occasionally communicate privately. That's right, why was Leonard left in Backlund? Because of me, the church doesn't want to put Leonard in a dangerous situation? Am I thinking too highly of myself? Klein secretly shook his head and rejected the thought that first came to him. He quickly changed his train of thought and analyzed the problem on matters that Leonard could be of service. Leonard is only a sequence 5, so what use can he play in Backlund that has deep undercurrents? Even if he's of use, they wouldn't use him. Instead, they would make use of me, who's related to him or Palaz Zarost. This can rule me out. I'm still a qualified blessed at the moment. If I really needed to do anything, then a simple instruction would suffice. The clearing of the Ammon avatars in Backlund last time made the goddess or the upper echelons of the church guess that Palaz Zarost is hiding in the vicinity of Backlund Street, and they ended up suspecting Leonard. There's a possibility, and it's not a low one either. Back then, I was concerned to some extent. I only believed that, in the case of Ammon becoming a god, the church and Palaz Zarost were on the same page, that they could form some sort of tacit understanding. In fact, I believed that grandpa had such considerations when he first chose Leonard as a target for parasitizing. But why is Palaz Zarost being kept in Backlund? To fish for Ammon. Even among the kings of angels, Ammon ranks among the top. It's almost impossible for the goddess to engage in a divine descent. With the church's angels, grade 0 sealed artifacts, and Palaz Zarost, it shouldn't be difficult to expel Ammon, but it's almost impossible to kill him. Unless he doesn't come with his actual body. But in that case, it's not worth making such arrangements. Klein's thoughts quickly developed, and soon he had a new idea. Fishing for Ammon isn't done so as to deal with him. Instead, it's to hold back Zeratul, who's currently in Backlund. Similar pathways could be interchanged at high levels. Even if one became a true god at Sequence 0, They still have a strong desire for the uniqueness and sequence 1 beyonder characteristics of neighboring pathways. On this point, the Evernight Goddess's plan was excellent evidence. The goddess wants to make Backland into a potpourri mess before wiping them all out. Klein made the world Jayaman Sparrow hesitate for a few seconds before saying, "The leader of the Secret Order, a Sequence 1 angel, and an old friend of Emperor Roselle, Zeratul, is currently hiding in Backland." Seeing that the members of the Tarot Club were clearly a little confused and perplexed, the world added in a hoarse voice, "The law of beyonder characteristics conservation we often refers to the conservation of beyonder characteristics of neighboring pathways. In other words, similar pathways also obey the law of convergence of beyonder characteristics." Leonard immediately fell into deep thought. After a few seconds, he deliberated and asked, "The Marauder and the Seer pathways are neighboring pathways?" "Yes, the Apprentice pathway is also a neighboring pathway," the world answered frankly. Upon hearing their conversation, Fors first connected the law of convergence of beyonder characteristics to the attraction between beyonder characteristics taught to her by her teacher, Dorian Gray Abraham. She connected it to the Saint of Secrets who had been attracted. Then she began to consider a question. If it really is, as Mr. World said, that beyonder characteristics of neighboring pathways attract one another, then would it have attracted the attention of Zeratul back then? After all, he is in Backland. All of a sudden, Fors thought of the raven that was staring at Bodhi's back. Fors hurriedly raised her hand, indicating that she had something to say. Seeing all the members looking over, she hurriedly said, "My teacher is a member of the Abraham family. He wields a rather important sealed artifact." As the first part of the sentence was known by the other members other than the star, Fors had no intention of hiding anything. As for the second half of the sentence, she had made some modifications. It was very important to change the phrase to rather important. Seeing that no one was raising any questions, Fors continued, "This causes him to occasionally encounter high sequence beyonders of the apprentice pathway. Previously, when he came to Backland, the Aurora Order's Saint of Secrets, Bodhi's, had appeared nearby. As for me, I noticed that a raven was looking in the direction where Bodhi's was heading." A raven? The details of the foggy town surfaced in Klein's mind. At the top of the pitch-black cathedral, there were ravens flying around, as if they were holding a memorial or in grief. As for Zeratul's avatar, it was hidden inside the cathedral. Zeratul is used to using ravens as marionettes. Is this a mark left behind during his phase as a bizarro sorcerer? While in thought, Klein made the world speak. "That might very well be Zeratul. I actually met a Sequence 1 angel." Fors felt a sense of fear and horror. She then recalled how she and Zio had discussed Adam and thus ended up possibly targeted. For some reason, she had the illusion that she had become the protagonist of a novel. Despite being only a Sequence 7 or 6, she had established connections with the Kings of Angels and Sequence 1 angels. With this in mind, Fors hurriedly turned her head to Miss Justice and said, "Can you hypnotize me later into forgetting certain matters? I'm afraid that I might accidentally recall something and attract attention." "No problem." As Audrey answered, she glanced at Zio and nodded at her. As for the star Leonard, he had some ideas as well. He planned on discussing it with Old Man when he returned to hear his opinion. Klein didn't continue talking about the major matters that lurked beneath Backland. This was because they were just too high-end for the other members of the Tarot Club. Not only were they unable to participate in it directly, but even having a complete understanding of them could bring about a disaster upon themselves. In this aspect, Klein's idea was that he could get the help of the members of the Tarot Club in certain segments, but it was like commissioning a bounty hunter to do something, without getting them too involved in the matter and figuring out the reason for the commission. It was a form of protection for them. At this moment, Alger looked around and said, "According to my observations, the Church of Storms isn't too enthusiastic about this war." "They aren't too enthusiastic. This doesn't match the image of the Church of the Lord of Storms. Although their teachings don't advocate combat and don't promote war, they definitely emphasize the need to treat their enemies like a storm and vent whatever anger they have on the spot." When Klein heard this, he felt a little surprised. He then combined his understanding of the deities and began his preliminary analysis. According to my previous speculations, Storm, Sun, Reader, Spectator, and Shepherd can switch paths at high levels. There should be an immense conflict between them. As for the Lord of Storms, he is highly likely the wind angel of yesteryear. He had eaten Adam's father, the ancient sun god, the city of silver creator. Even if he had tacitly allowed George III to become Black Emperor, it's impossible for him to sit back and watch Adam make use of the flood of the times to ascend to divinity. Therefore, the Church of the Lord of Storms is unwilling to have the war increase in scope and allow it to turn into a world war. Hence, he is trying hard to control his impulse. It must be really hard on them. This can explain why Lone and Intis would maintain their strange silence when Fanapotter invaded Lenberg, Masson, and Segur. The Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun and the Church of the Lord of Storms are probably in a difficult position. They're unable to make up their minds. On the one hand, at the level of the deities, it isn't that there is no possibility of abandoning their alliance to deal with the Church of Knowledge. On the other hand, the battle strategies at the national level also prompts them to protect those countries. Forcefully breaking the perceptions built up by the citizens of a country would be an act that causes the anchors to become unstable. Also, once they participate in the battle, they would help Adam fulfill the conditions of his advancement to sequence 0. Klein deliberately made the world silent for a moment before replying to the hanged man's intelligence. At present, this is inevitable.